Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Learning to Glow. I'm your host, Jess, and we have such a great episode for you today. I am so excited. I connected with our guest. Her name is Alana Bonnemann, and she is a nutritionist and a naturopath. Alana has experience in the health and wellness field for over a decade, and she has her passion in helping women embrace their best selves inside and out. Alana was such an amazing guest, and I absolutely loved what she shared with us because this is a new year and a lot of people are ready to start incorporating some healthier habits and making some changes. And we all know there's a lot of New Year's resolutions right now at this time and a lot of goal setting. And I loved what Alana talked about in this episode because it really helps with making sure that your goals succeed and really taking away that pressure to have everything happen super quick. And if your goal is a weight loss goal, for example, in the new year, which is really common, trying to rush it or look at it like I need to have this done in 21 days or 30 days instead of looking at it as a long game. It works so much better and your chances of it being successful are so much higher. So she gave us some really great tips for habits and mindset. This is just such good information in the new year. I absolutely loved Alana. She's the host of a podcast, Health Over 30, and I will make sure to link in the show notes her information where you can follow her on Instagram, check out her podcast, and check out her website as well. So thank you, Alana. I hope that everyone enjoys this episode, that you're having a wonderful new year so far, and cheers to a very healthy and happy 2024. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learning to Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jess, and today we have Alana Bonnemann. Welcome.
Hi, Jess. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today.
So glad you're here. I'm so excited that we connected because we are in now a new year, and this is going to be a great topic for my listeners because a lot of people are ready to start those healthy habits and get back into a healthier mindset, tackle some of their New Year's resolutions and all of that good stuff. So you are a nutritionist and a naturopath.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing like how you found yourself doing this type of work and a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I grew up in a household which was, I guess, holistic health. My dad was a chiropractor and very much encouraged that health is your wealth. And it's, it's the one thing that's really going to carry you through life. And so I kind of was brought up with this, I guess, ethos. And then I went on to study naturopathy. And I came out really interested in the integumentary system, really interested in the skin. I thought it was interesting how sometimes we, how do I explain this? Like there can be so much going on in our health, but until you physically see it, till it presents on your skin, that can be the catalyst for things to make drastic change. You're like, oh my gosh, for example, I have a face of acne. I'm going to make change through my whole body now. And you can have a problem with your digestion and you can kind of get away with it, but with your skin, you can't really get away with it. So when I learned all of these different things in uni, I was like, the skin is amazing. And I went into skin, but then through my journey of becoming a mother, having children, I really learned how integral it was to learn and nurture and have healthy habits to have a holistic and well life, or to have to have good health through life. And so I brought this into my practice and I started seeing this was a big issue for a lot of people. And so I really started to go, I guess, away from just the skin and more towards the whole holistic health, getting to a feel-good body, which means, I guess, from the outside and also the inside as well. So that's kind of what got me to where I am today. And this is also why I'm excited to also be on your podcast, because I find what you do and everything that you're also about really interesting as well.
Thank you. Oh, that's so amazing. I love your story. And I've mentioned this on my podcast before, but I've been in the skincare industry for many years. And one of the first companies that I ever worked with was very much about beauty from the inside out, which was such a great way to start my career because I always had that belief. If somebody came to me and they're like, okay, this I'm having this eczema or this acne or whatever the case may be, I never was only like just product. One of the
Yeah.
first things I would ask is, what are you allergic to? Like, do you even know? And a lot of times they didn't. And
Yeah.
just having this personal issue with my son who had major eczema as a baby,
Oh, okay.
and the doctors would just say, "Hey, put this
Slap some
this on
cortisol
it,
on it.
and yeah,
Mm.
here's steroids or whatever." And finally, was lucky enough to have a doctor say, "He has a gluten allergy. I can just tell."
Yeah.
And we were able to, within a few weeks, have his eczema cleared up, and that had been a big problem for months on end. So
Yeah.
I love all this stuff. I know I've shared this story before on the podcast, but it's what really kicked off my journey of learning more about health and wellness. And it works hand in hand with skin because I do love helping people with their skin and get great results. And you can do that topically, but this inside job is
It's
important for
so
us.
important. And you're right. There's so many triggers for people as well. I've had that firsthand. When I was going through uni, I tried every diet. I was eating, the kales and the almonds and the apples and everything. I found out that there is a natural salicylates, which is a natural component. It's kind of helps repels. It's a natural repellent, which is
Mhm.
in these foods. And when I ate too much of that, I hit a certain threshold and my body would break out in hives. And I thought, I'm eating this picture perfect healthy diet, but I have hives everywhere. I had to unpack everything. I went sugar free, gluten free, dairy free. I did all the things. And I didn't even think that it was in the healthy foods. And until you really find what triggers you as an individual, it's really, yeah, you could be kind of glazing over so much. So it's really important to know your individual, I guess, needs, your individual triggers, and what your body's saying to you, which I think is a big about what we're going to talk about today when it comes down to habits and what we can do individually for us to kind of, yeah, have long-term sustainable change.
It's so true too with what you said because you're sitting there having all this health, quote unquote healthy food, and of course it is healthy food, but you have to that's what helps get you into that individual customized approach because everyone's different and what we can tolerate is different. And even though it's like a healthy food, it could not be healthy for you,
Mm,
or too much. It couldn't be healthy for you. So
yeah.
why don't we get into some of the habits and some of the mindset and like you talked about with some of the things that have really helped with your clients? Because if we don't sort of have that habit, and this is what happens in the new year, right? We say, okay, we're super motivated.
Yeah.
I am
New
done
Year's
with See's candy.
resolution. Yeah.
Yes, New Year's resolution. Like I'm done eating that way and I'm super motivated and I'm going to use willpower. And then
Yeah.
you get to mid-January and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah,
Like, let's just,
exactly.
who cares? I don't
Tried
care
that,
anymore.
doesn't work. Yeah. So that's like exactly how you described it is exactly kind of what feeds part of the problem is that I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be healthy and it's going to change. And the thing is, our health is not infinite. Sorry, let me say that again. Our health is not finite.
Mm,
It is infinite. It's not something that you start and end in 3 weeks or on a diet or on a trend. Your health is something that's going to be with you for a very long time, for your whole life. And when we think about our life span, it's not just about the years that we put in our life, it's about the health span that we create. So we really need to stop having this approach of it's the new year and I'm going to start a new diet and this is going to be it, because that's so short term.
mhm.
And that, of course, that's never going to work because it's not sustainable. And especially if that diet is saying, okay, none of this, no of that, no fun, all these restrictions, who is going to enjoy that? Especially if you love certain things and then you can't have dairy, you can't have gluten, don't drink alcohol, no sugar, you're going to set yourself up for failure, because we need to be able to be fair, but also have fun for it to be sustainable long term for our whole life.
It's so true. I'm sure you've heard of the Whole 30 program before. I've done that like a few times, and it's like you're clawing your way to the 30 days, and it's so tough because you've cut out so many things. And then, and with elimination diets, I do feel like there is a time and place for
Yeah,
them, especially if you're trying
absolutely.
to rule out things like I
Yeah.
think that was so good for me in a
Yes.
lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I need to lose weight and feel good, once you know what you can and can't do, I don't find it to be it's just not
So helpful.
sustainable. So, yeah, so I'd love to hear, like, how do you like, what are some habits that you think are really helpful for people that are trying to get healthy, and it's not a short-term thing, like, they want a new way of life?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of it this is before you even talk about nutrition. This is before you even talk about what to eat, how a plate looks, because people know that vegetables are good. People know that water's great, having a good night's sleep. We know all of this. But
Mm,
why is it so hard to stick with it? And I think this comes down to a lot of our mindset, the way that we approach it, how also we have been brought up. As I said, like before, a lot of the stuff I've had to learn through my kids, a lot of the things that I come out of my mouth to my kids, finish what's on your plate, you know, have your dinner and then you can have dessert. These types of things, which I've inherited from my family, I'm from a Chinese family, eat every single grain of rice that's in your bowl. Otherwise, your partner is going to have holes in his face. I was taught these things, which are completely arbitrary. And one of the main things that we can learn, I guess, is to listen to what our body needs because we have been brought up with these rules. And who says, when you think about feeding your kids, eat dinner because it's dinner time, if they've just come home from a friend's house and that maybe they've just eaten a big meal, or maybe they don't feel well and they're not hungry, and we're telling them they have to eat, or we've been told when we're younger that we have to eat, even though we're not hungry, we're really going against our own, I guess, intuition. We're going against our own body's needs. And we're saying, okay, well, mum's telling us to eat. So that must be what I have to do, even though my body's screaming that it doesn't feel like eating. So a lot of this we've picked up in childhood. And I think just the first step is to acknowledge that. Oh, hold on a second. I don't have to eat everything that's on my plate. I don't have to finish my food in order to get dessert. I don't have to eat because I'm going out to brunch with the girls and I just ate breakfast with the kids. So there's certain, I guess, societal things that kind of slip us up. And I think the first thing is we need to get in touch with what we need. And oftentimes we've ignored our body's needs for so long that it's actually quite hard to listen to our body's needs. So I guess when we're thinking about this, knowing what hunger feels like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's the difference between hunger and appetite, knowing that I'm hungry because my stomach's aching, I've got low blood sugar levels, I've got a headache, compared to, oh, it's my lunch break, I'm bored, I'm just going to go to the fridge and eat. Just knowing these subtle differences can start to make massive change in the way that we're doing things, how we approach things, and yeah, our mindset towards it all.
I love this tip so much. This is so exciting that you're mentioning this. I actually didn't have that experience growing up. I remember like eating food with my dad or my parents. I think especially my dad, because he was told to eat everything, and that, that was like really important to his parents. And so I remember him telling me like he didn't want to do that to us, like
That's so
because he didn't like that. And it's such a good point of how we lose our intuition of what we actually need, our hunger cues, or when are we full, when are we not, if we're being forced to eat too much. And then I
yeah,
think the other side of that, as more like adults and a lot of women that have been on diets and all these programs, we're told like you can't eat this much. So we're like ignoring the fact that no, we still need food because
yeah.
that's not in our plan. And a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
times those plans are so under, the caloric intake for the day is so much lower than it should be. So then your body is like just so off as for what it needs, and you're just not listening to it. You're training your body not to listen to what it needs. And
Just
so
ignore
I
it, yeah.
I think this could be such a huge one for this is such a huge tip for people going into the new year, because like you said, it could take some time and practice to even know what your
Yeah,
body needs
yeah,
after doing that.
yeah. And so often you can just play a little game with yourself. before you do eat, you can just catch yourself up on it. Because sometimes we eat because we're anxious or we're sad or we're bored. And sometimes we're just genuinely hungry, and just knowing the difference between this as well. And you just touched on diets as well. I think this is probably one of the largest things as well that really trip us up, is that we hopping on a diet and then like trying a diet, doing it, and then stopping, and then kind of reverting back to our old ways, and then starting a diet again. This cyclical diet, roller coaster, yo-yo, whatever you want to call it, is the problem. Like starting again, stopping, starting again, stopping, trying something new, going keto, going, all these different things that you can do, instead of just going back to basics and not being too strict on yourself. As I said before, it's not fun being strict. We don't want to live with restrictions. And then finding what works for you. And also everyone's different. Also everyone has a different cuisine, like what type of foods we eat, how much we move, the certain conditions we have, as we talked about before, our individual needs. So not one diet does fit all, but so often it's just broad blanketed, like fasting, like just fast. And we're now seeing that this isn't necessarily for menstruating women. Women have different cycles, the way in which, our bodies work. So we can't just always go on a cookie cutter diet, because it's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah, and it's hard not to get in that trap of seeing things online, and there's someone who looks a certain way and they're like, all I did was intermittent fast. And you're like, okay, well then I should do that.
It worked for me. It's going to work for you too.
Right. And it can't work for everyone. And no. I've gotten slipped up in that so many times where I think, oh, okay, well this is it. This is what that person says. It worked for them. Perfect. So that means I should give it a try. And you can do some harm when you just follow whatever willy-nilly thing you see online.
Yeah. And it also depends on what your goals are. A lot of the time, and I use, I guess, in the way I say things, is kind of getting to your feel good weight, feel good body. It's not about weight loss, because why do we have to lose weight? Says who? It's like this heroin chic skinny culture from the 90s, which we've just carried on and often are sometimes passing on to our kids. Like, it's that skinny and having to lose weight, it's not healthy. What is healthy for me might be different to you, might be different to our neighbors. So knowing what feels healthy. Does running around keeping up with your kids, does that feel healthy to you? Having glowing skin, is that healthy? Having the energy to get up and do the things you love. Like, is that, that's health. That's what we need to be going for, not just the way that we look. And I feel that this whole diet culture and the industry, sometimes even the health industry, really pushes that. So I think we really need to sit with our whys and why we're doing things, what's important, because it's not just to shed a few kilos. And if that's the goal, then it's always going to be this, I try, it didn't work, I try, it didn't work, because it's more than that.
That is so beautiful. I love what you said there. It's so true. What having that why, I feel like, will help when you're in this place in this new year. If you say weight loss is your goal, why what's deeper than that? Because I feel like that's what's going to really sustain your drive and your habits,
Absolutely.
And I have the same thing, and I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, but I've had a lot of issues with my weight, and what I've used to think was healthy, I used to just think skinny is healthy.
Yeah.
And if when that was not the case, I was at some of my most unhealthy at my most thin and skinny.
Yeah.
And, that is no longer my goal. It's like you said, that what you said there was my goal, my energy, being with my kids and feeling amazing, like beautiful skin.
Letting that radiate out. Yeah. It does.
Those are the goals. Yeah.
You're doing it. You're kicking it.
Thank you. I feel like that is such an important point. And I think because, like you said, in the wellness industry, in the wellness space, a lot of times people are trying to sell you something, which is why they're doing these, 21-day programs and like lose 10, we say pounds here, but or whatever the kilo is. I definitely feel like it is a good time to not only make your goals, but to reflect on why do you want them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually, yeah, you're right. With a new year starting this, for every aspect in our life, it's something that we can kind of take on. Why are we doing things? It's an important one, actually. Simon Sinek has a whole lot of, he's got his TED Talks and everything on it. And I really resonate with that. It drives me forward in so much of my life. And when it comes to health, yeah, if you have a sore knee, you will be in pain and you'll want to change that. And then sometimes it's the catalyst for so many other things. So it starts with one thing and then it just evolves, because once you start feeling good in this area of your life, then it's like, oh, I feel good in that area of my life, in this area of my life. And it really becomes a holistic way of looking at things and treating yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that domino effect for sure
Yeah.
of, yeah, this feels good. And it's so true when you are starting to incorporate more healthy habits, it does trickle down into every area of your life.
Yeah.
And what are some so, when you're talking with a client, you said this is kind of like your first step
Yeah.
for, and it's so important. If you don't start with this, I could see how these habits are not going to last.
Yeah.
What's next? What do
Yeah.
you usually talk about next?
Well, it depends. I guess we go over, like when I first start working with a client, we kind of do a whole health history. What got you to where you are? And let's go to the root cause of that and kind of unpack that. When I was working a lot with skin, usually the skin is it's like the pond at the end of a river. There's a lot going on upstream to
Mm.
present with concern. So depending on what you're presenting with, whether it's skin issues or digestive issues or, any type of condition, we need to kind of unpack what's been going on upstream and relieve some of these or work on some of these before we can do that. So again, that can be very individual. But I think when I'm working within like this feel good body, there's a few main things that it comes down to. And I guess that's digestion. How's our gut health? How are we digesting food? I guess in a small portion of it too, what are we eating and how are we eating it? Also very
Mhm.
important,
Mhm.
but not the only thing. And then let's talk about our nervous system. Like, how do you feel? How are you? Are we tense? Is everything stressed? Because this is going to affect our hormones and everything else. And then also we need to look at our hormonal health as well. Like we need to take a big picture on, some of these areas of our health and kind of go through each aspect of that and work on those. And for some, it's going to be a lot more nervous system, not so much digestion. So it can be, it can be different from everyone, but I think there are some pretty obvious, I guess, systems that we need to be looking at.
I loved that analogy of the stream and the pond. That is brilliant. And I always tell people, like, isn't it like the alarm system of your body? Like, it's like, alert, there's something that could be going on in here.
Red flag.
Yes, yes. Like it's such an easy way to notice something's probably a little off here. And like,
Yeah.
what is that? When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today. One thing that you mentioned that I continually have to remind myself about this, but I learned about this last year or the year before. You said it's not only what we eat, but how we eat.
Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about that? Because I know, as someone who's had a lot of digestion issues in my
Yeah.
life, I realized only recently that I was definitely doing things that could be causing or contributing to my issues.
Yeah.
So what do you tell people with, like, what does it mean how you
How to eat,
eat?
yeah. Well, it's also kind of, I guess it resonates with also it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb as well. So this comes down to
Mhm.
our gut health and how well we're absorbing things and how our, the gut and the villi and our digestion's going. But it's not what we eat, it's how we eat it. So, when we think of, let's say, healthy, everyone would say a salad's healthy. But if you have your salad and you're on your desk and at the same time you're kind of eating and shoveling in food while you're like either watching TV or ingrained in something else, you are not like your digestion is not at its fullest. When we watch TV, it seems like a very relaxing experience, but it is actually stimulating our sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight. Back in the days, it was the whole tiger chasing thing. But for now, that's just if we're watching something that's stimulating, palms might get sweaty, digestion's kind of clenching up, and we're focused on this. So when we're eating, and we're distracted. We're on our phones scrolling Instagram while we're eating, as anyone does who's home officing and, doesn't have colleagues to talk to or whatever the reason is. I mean, even those who do, we're not the start of the digestion isn't working. It becomes the mechanicals, obviously the very start, you're doing that, but then how's the rest of it going? If you're watching something or if you're doing something that's kind of stimulating that sympathetic nervous system, our digestion's not functioning well. When we sit without distraction, we put our phones away, having a conversation with a friend, being in a relaxed state, having that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, our system is relaxed. So when we're eating foods, everything's happening the way it should. Things being unpacked, it's a relaxed state and your digestion can do what it wants, opposed to it shutting down and being in more of a stimulated environment. So this, I guess, is probably one of the many things that we could do when we think about it's not about what we eat, it's how we eat it. What's more beneficial, having a salad and then eating completely distracted, or enjoying pizza with friends on a Friday night, the kids running around under the table, so long as they're not too stressful, like what's more healthy for us in that state? And that's what we need to think of, because a lot of the diets be like, you don't eat pizza. That's the devil. Don't want to do that, but it's not, it's not.
No, it's so good. It's I always love to have these conversations, especially like it's even though it's a new year and we're at our peak motivation, like
Yeah.
we're in it. We want to do the right
Yeah.
things and we want to get back to feeling better. It always, what we think and see as being healthy, it isn't always just that. It's like it, the I just was watching a show called The Blue Zones, and
Oh
they were
yeah.
talking about how these people who lived to be over 100, one thing they all had in common was community and
Mm.
getting together with their loved ones. And like you said, many times it's pizza. I mean, they were in Italy, they were in Greece, and having these long lives, and no one's ever like, oh no, we don't eat that, or not that we can't be mindful and get in all of the vegetables. Like you said, we know what it's good
It's
for us.
healthy.
Like
Yeah.
we're most everyone listening here knows vegetables are good for us, and
Yeah,
lean
exactly.
proteins are good for us.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's such a good point, what you're mentioning with having a tweaking your mindset to think like, this is also healthy, this is nourishing
Yeah.
me
Mm.
with my heart and my
My
brain,
soul.
and
Yeah.
all of that is so important. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this Blues one, I haven't seen it, but I remember the oldest person I ever met. I think he was maybe 104 or 3. He was in a hospital. And I was like, wow, you're a very old person. I was like, what did you do in life? And he's like, worked on farms and smoked every day. This is like an Aussie battler in Australia. And I was like, wow. And I just thought, it's not just about, yeah, you don't get, how do I say this? Like, you don't just get old. Or, like having a long life, there's so many factors that come into it. And, there's so many studies like doing the ice baths and intermittent fasting and all of these things that are said to be good for us. But if your nervous system's not relaxed, if you're not enjoying life, if you're not happy, then how beneficial is that really,
Mm.
for you? There has to be a
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah, and also a lot of that can add so much stress. You have to do it right. You can't have this, you can't have that. I mean, I've seen this so much. I mean, I live in Southern California. It's very health conscious,
Yeah.
air quotes. And it is, like, you can get a green smoothie on every block, like, there's definitely, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I love all that stuff, like,
Yeah.
that is fun for me. I do love all the healthy stuff that we have available to us, but yeah, that's just one part of it,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we get so consumed with doing it right and doing it perfect that you've added on this big old pile of stress that
Mm,
is negatively impacting your health, and you
yeah.
think you're doing all these things right, but that's just one piece of the pie, and
Yeah.
if it's gonna come with such a price of stress, we know stress is just the worst
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
health, so it's something that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah, it is. I think through my own journey as well, and I was also very, don't want to say controlling, but maybe I also wanted to do all the things right. And I think as a naturopath and a nutritionist, people expect me to do stuff like that. And I think I just want to start to tell people that it's okay not to. I also enjoy green smoothie. I also enjoy eating well. I enjoy nourishing my body. It's a part of like that enjoyment of it is an essential part of it too. But I think through my own story, I it's also have just being able to relax with it too, not being so
Mm,
strict on yourself. Over the years, I think I've learnt that, but also with having children, not being so strict on them. It's fun, it's fun to enjoy foods. Food is a part of culture. Food is a part of connection, community. Like you said before, does also have that health element, but there's so much more it brings to the table. And I think that's why I'm a massive anti-diet advocate, because it's just we don't need to be on strict diets. There are certain things that like nutritional factors that you and I both need to thrive, right? But yeah, it doesn't need to be an unfun strict diet.
no, and it shouldn't be, and I think it's so nice when you can have that example for your children, where you can enjoy all of these things,
Yeah.
and food is not good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, and I try to do this as much as I can with my children and my family, and I've been through it, like, I've had eating disorders. I've been through the other end of it. I've been everywhere in between, and it's one of those things that I do have to be, self-aware of, because I don't wanna sort of pass that on.
Yeah.
And I've grown and learned so much about all of this. There's people like you who are so amazing at educating us on this and showing that it doesn't have to be so extreme and strict
Yeah.
to see results and to get healthy and, like, and
Yeah.
heal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that you nailed it. It doesn't need to be so strict to achieve all of that and any of that. And you also talked about just the good and the bad food. That's another thing that I talk a lot about in practice as well. And that's actually really difficult to unprogram, deprogram in you. It's healthy, it's not healthy. It's superfood, it's junk food. Like we categorize food very easy just to kind of so people know what it is. And I think there's a lot of health advocates will be like, that is unhealthy. And this food is unhealthy and that is healthy. But in the end, food is food and we can't really just moralize food. And I think there are some foods which are not, they're perhaps not even foods. They're like Michael Pollan calls them food-like substances. Some of the packaged things which have a shelf life for 4 years and are full of other ingredients, stabilizers, emulsifiers, caking agents to keep it how it is that actually even a food? But when you're teaching a child, and in essence, when we're reteaching ourselves as adults, when it's on the marketplace and you can buy it and it's in the food aisle, we need to kind of know, like, even though it's not perhaps even food, we need to know, okay, it's okay to enjoy it, but within moderation. And how can we, and yeah, throughout our lives, throughout our years, and especially in the new year, how can we then, I guess, have more of one food than the other? How can we stay healthy but still enjoy that stuff? Because, yeah, for ourselves, for our children, at one point, they're going to be old enough to go out into the world. They're going to have their own money. We have our own money. And if we're so strict on what we do, and that's bad, and I can't do it, and you're restricting, and you're strict, and you're strict, then sooner or later you're going to break. and you're going to just be, I want it all, you know? And so we need to really establish those habits that it's okay. And then just know, okay, what it is okay to have that. And then how else can we support ourselves?
Yeah, and then going back to that, hopefully, because you can't protect your children from what you want them not to eat forever.
Absolutely.
And, I my goal is always to like give them a good foundation of what makes them feel good after they eat it, and e not demonize anything, because that's just gonna make them want it even more. And
Mm,
then also know that, like, and even my 13-year-old is already so good at this. Like, if he's had a weekend where we had dinners out, or maybe he went with some friends, he's come up to me and said, "Can I have something healthy for dinner tonight?"
yeah.
Like, he knows he's getting in tune with his body and what maybe I'm not feeling great right now
Mm,
because I indulged a little bit too much, and now he's kind of realizing, "Oh yeah, I feel like I need to eat something
yeah.
to
It's
that's
good.
healthy tonight."
Yeah, children, they know it. I mean, children also before the age of 5, they will intuitively know when they're like when they're full. Like as a baby, children usually pull
Mm,
away when they're full. They know after the age of 5, a lot of kind of environmental or conditioning or societal conditionings kind of come in. But before the age of 5, they know. And it's, yeah, I mean, your son, he's 13 now.
mhm,
And so I mean, he's at the stage, if you're eating fries for 2 days straight, your body's going to crave it. Your body's going to
mm.
crave something fresh. And equally, if you're just eating salad for 5 days straight, then your body's going to crave something different. So yeah, it's good. It's a sign of your body, your son kind of knowing that what he wants. And then, knowing how to ask for it, vocalize it, and then also how to get it, what
That's
that
right. Like,
means. Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to be able to provide like the healthy foods and some education around that, but also not be like, "And you can never have this,"
Yeah.
because that's terrible. So,
Yeah.
what do you have any other tips for us, like New Year habits, getting back into, if we're not feeling great, we've overdone it, we didn't sleep great. Any other tips that you can recommend, like for starting
Yeah.
off the new year with longer lasting
Yeah.
habits?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, coming into the new year and feeling like I need to make a change, take that momentum with you. Take it and put it towards this is an infinite game. Like, it's not gonna, ideally, when we sit down and chat again, Jess, in December 2024, we're not thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, what even this whole year went by and I made no health changes. Start this year with this is an infinite game. It's going to go past 2024. It's going to go past 2025 into 35 and beyond. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's going to be something that happens gradually. And you make choices. And when those choices present to you, going out to eat pizza with friends, choose to enjoy that. And then also find times in your week where your body's asking for things that it wants. And when it does do that, then honor it and feed it what it wants. That sounded very broad, I think, saying that, feeding what it wants, because sometimes you don't know what it wants. But I guess, yeah, coming back into finding balance in your week, I suppose. Yeah, I'm thinking there's a lot more structures in that, and I'm giving like very broad ways to start the new year. But I kind of want to, I guess, start it knowing that it is an infinite game, and don't start this new year on a diet. Don't start this new year thinking I'm going to do a quick fix and I'm going to feel
Mm,
great after that. But just do the things that you know that are good for you. Do the things that you know light your body up, that makes it feel good, that gives you a full evacuation every morning when you sit down, on the toilet. Give yourself the gift of, feeling well when you wake up in the morning. We know sometimes sitting up late at night, that it's not good, like we know these things. So if you can
mm.
start anywhere, just do the things that you know that your body says thank you for and that it thrives on, and start there. And when you start after a week, after a month, after 3 months, after you start to feel these changes, then build on that. Okay, what's the next thing I can do? Where's the next place I can go? And knowing that's an infinite game, and keeping on doing that. That's where I would start this new year. Instead of starting on some crazy diet or a trend, like put in the foundations for a good, a good year and a good life of good health. That's the thing that I'd say.
I love that. I feel like a lot of people need to hear is what you mentioned. Don't be in a rush. This isn't something that needs to happen in the first 2 weeks of January. And if you switch just that one thing this year, I bet the chances of success and feeling better and getting to your goals are so much more possible. So you are amazing. I absolutely loved this. This was perfect. It's just what we all need, really. It's what we all need to hear. And you articulated all of this so beautifully. So
thank
I
you,
wish
Jess.
thank you. And please let people know where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yeah. My name's Alana Bonnemann. AlanaBonnemann.com is where you find me, naturopath.alana. And I also host the Health After 30 podcast. So that's also where I talk about stuff like this. So if they want to, they can head over there as well.
That is perfect. I will link all of this in the show notes. And are you on social media at all? Or
yeah, my handle's naturopath.alana.
Okay.
On Instagram. Don't do the
Instagram.
TikToks or anything. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll link the Instagram. And again, thank you so much for your time and for being here. This was amazing.
It was such a wonderful chat. Thank you for having me, Jess.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.